Hey, this is Bruce Boudreau, and you're listening to Empty Betters with Nick, Mack, and Harrison.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to episode 156 of Empty Betters. I'm your host, Harrison Scholes. I'm going to toss it across the screen to my co-host up in Wisconsin, Mac Vogel. What's going on, buddy?
Not much. Last time I checked in, I was pretty hyped up over outdoor rink season going on, and it was short-lived because it's in the mid 40s all week, and all the rinks are shut down now. So that's a bummer. But I got in, I think three solid ODR sessions last week, so better than nothing. I'll take it.
Better than what I got down here for sure. And then a little twist to this episode, we actually have our pal, the Daily Over, Cole. He's joining us as our second co-host for this episode. Cole, what's going on, my man?
Not too much. Thanks for having me back. Good to be back. A little bit colder up here in Canada.
What do you got up there right now?
Well, we're actually today's a pretty good day. It was like we say, I guess it's +1 here. We actually had
Celsius
rain today, which was weird, but like 3 days ago it was -35.
Oh my God.
Yeah, freezing.
This is going to be the most American question ever, but do you guys do like Celsius up there? Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
That's what I figured.
So
but me being me.
I can't, I never do the
Oh, don't ask me. There's no way it's happening.
I don't think any of us are doing the conversion right now. I joked to Harry earlier this morning when he said that Nick wasn't going to make it today and you were going to stand in. I was like, oh, cool. It's a Curly Joe episode of the Three Stooges where like one of the main guys can't go and they got to get a sub.
100%. And it has to be the Canadian.
There you go. Yeah, Nick not here today. A little busy, so we're having Cole step in. Glad to have you. We'll cut the pitter patter and get out of here. But before we do, just a reminder that this league news is brought to you by Brackish Life. If you're like us and grew up on the water and outdoors, then Brackish Life is perfect for you. They have a wide selection of gear from UV shirts to hoodies and hats. It is Real Bay apparel made by Real Bay people. Head to www.brackish.life today to check them out. A little salty, a little fresh Brackish Life. Especially had a beach season coming up here in the spring and summer. If you are someone who gets sunburned real easy, definitely check out their shirts, UV protected, awesome gear. And thank you for sponsoring us. All right, we obviously had the NHL All-Star Game go down over the weekend. Before I read some of the headlines, general overall thoughts from you guys.
Well, full disclosure, did not watch the entirety of both events. I watched a little bit of the skills competition. Didn't actually watch any of the All-Star Game live, but obviously, saw the important highlights later on. I feel prepared enough to chat about it. But I mean, my general opinion is that the whole weekend is just kind of a lot of BS. But it's not much different than any of the other All-Star festivities in the other sports, except baseball. I actually like that one, but
agreed. Cole, your thoughts?
I watched the entire skills comp. Thought it was different. I know they're trying different things each year. I still look forward to the main ones: hardest shot, accuracy.
Yeah.
Just that's what I'm there for. The golf thing on the course, Suzuki win. It was kind of cool. I felt like they put like the bottom 4 teams there, except for Dallas. It was like Arizona, Columbus, and Montreal. I'm like, of course, it has to be golf.
That is kind of funny. I didn't even
forecasting how their season's going, but
I didn't mind that one. That one was kind of fun seeing them
different.
Try and fling those across the golf course. But
I found
I'm with you. The OG categories are the best ones.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I found it a little bit harder to follow this year. I felt like they were jumping from skill to skill, where in the past they were, it was just one at a time type of thing. Not sure why they did that, but yeah, still look forward to the accuracy and hardest shot.
So Cole, can you confirm or deny that Nick Suzuki, for winning the golf thing or whatever that was called, he won free Chipotle for a year, but I've been reading on Twitter that there is no Chipotle in Quebec.
That I can confirm that. I can confirm that. I am sure he is going to be giving that to his boy Caulfield. So when he comes back down to the States in the summer, he could
That
grub
is
out.
that is unreal. Like that's just so NHL All-Star game to give a guy free Chipotle when he lives in a city that doesn't have Chipotle. Like,
Yeah, I don't know if they were banking on him winning.
yeah, I would
Didn't think
definitely
that one
echo
out.
that.
The other one that I do kind of like, and it's definitely a little bit more cheesy, but I am a fan of like the goalie goal one where they try and have like
Yeah.
the goalie stop it behind the crease and like rip one from
Mhm.
full ice. That's kind of a fun little challenge.
Yeah, good for the crowd too.
Yeah, I definitely like that one too, Mac. But when you have a 4-year-old headlining your All-Star game, I think that there's definitely some questions that arise from that. Obviously, if you don't live under a rock, you've seen the OV Junior breakaway goal with Sid and his dad kind of feeding him on a 3-on-0 there. That definitely was the clip that went viral all around. But of course, McDavid doesn't even want to participate in the event that he would win easily. Participates in accuracy shooting. He didn't win it. Technically, Brock Nelson won it. I don't know how they had like a bunch of rounds and shit. But McDavid goes for 4 for 4 in his target shooting in like 9.3 seconds and is just a cyborg. So
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
He's incredible. He's like, yeah, I'm over skating fast, for this. I'm just gonna shoot the puck, and did it in almost record timing, or maybe record timing. I'm not sure how. Like, I watched it. I don't know why they went to that, like the semifinal the way they did it, but
Mhm.
I just thought it would have been whoever did it in the least amount of time. But
I would bet you most casuals who didn't watch all of it, like Mac and myself, probably wouldn't know Brock Nelson won because the McDavid clip is really what took over Twitter. So that was
it's
pretty
true.
yeah, it was pretty cool. Sveshnikov, he wins fastest skater. Elias Pettersson wins hardest shot, 103.2 miles per hour for those curious. And then obviously Nick Suzuki wins free Chipotle for a year that he can't have. And then we move on to the All-Star Game festivities. The Atlantic beat the Metro in round 1, 10-6. The Central beat the Pacific 6-4. And then in the championship, the Atlantic play the Central, and the Atlantic takes it 7-5. Think it's worth noting there were 11 total players on the Atlantic Division team, of which $1 million winnings will be split amongst all 11. So not a bad little payday, especially if you're on that rookie deal for the guys on the Atlantic. And Matthew
100%.
Tkachuk, he wins the NHL All-Star MVP on home ice. I think I read it's like the 6th time ever a guy won it on his home ice. So pretty cool. Did you guys have any thoughts on the All-Star game itself?
I only watched bits and pieces. I did watch some of it live. I thought the Atlantic Division did put, they played well. Larkin was the biggest surprise for me. I think he set the record for most goals. I think he tied that with 5 or something like that. So I think that would have been my biggest surprise out of it. But it's kind of cool to see Ovi and Sid
Yeah.
playing together, going back and forth for a goal, which is pretty cool. It's almost like passing to the guard. I felt like this could be the last All-Star game where they're both there.
Yeah.
McDavid, McKinnon, like the new stars are kind of there. And it's like passing of the torch, which I thought was pretty cool.
I feel like that's a big reason why Ovi and Crosby both went this year because they've both been known to skip a lot of them in the past, and I think they both are kind of realizing like, all right, we should probably give the people what they want and go enjoy some of the bullshit one last time while we still can, because who knows how many more times we'll get, if any. So
Big company guys. Big company guys.
yeah.
It's also it's cool. I mean, I'm sure half of the well, I won't say half, but a big chunk of the reason you get to go to South Florida in the middle of February, whereas opposed to next year's game, which will be hosted in Toronto.
Yep.
That might, sway some decisions. It's going to be pretty cold if I was a
They
betting man.
might have been looking ahead to that one. They're like, yeah, I'm not going next year, so better
Yeah,
better go now.
But Mac, you being the big music guy on the pod, I think that Justin Bieber being at the All-Star game is the ultimate selling point. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, he's a big hockey guy. I can't tell you a whole lot about his music as of recently. I don't even know like what he's up to, if he's released an album anytime recently or if he's got one coming out or anything. But I always have kind of thought it's cool that he at least keeps up with the hockey stuff. And also for any like TV fanatics out there, anybody that's watched The White Lotus, I thought it was kind of cool that one of the main actors from The White Lotus. I forget his name, but it's the guy who plays Albie. That's his character's name.
Yeah.
He was one of the celebrity judges for like the skills competition.
Oh,
And
really?
apparently he's like a big hockey fan. They showed like a picture of him when he was like 5-6 years old, decked out in like Panthers gear, like holding the hockey stick and stuff. So that was kind of a fun little tidbit.
That is cool. Yeah. No, I know exactly what you're talking about. Season 2 for those who haven't seen it.
Yep.
I have not seen it.
Oh, you did.
But
good show.
That's going to be that All-Star will be about 3 to 4 hours south of me.
Oh, wow.
So
okay, so it's real cold where you
drive, go see the boys maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on from the All-Star game. One thing that's kind of related to it before we completely move on. Crosby made it known at the All-Star game that he believes the NHL should go back to a 1-8 playoff format, Eastern and Western Conference. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Love it.
100%. We've been saying it for a long time. I mean, seems like a no-brainer to me. It's more fair. It's more fun. It's just better for a million reasons.
100%. Couldn't agree more. You want the top teams to get rewarded. It's tough enough. 82 seasons, the travel, the game that I think it's the most competitive league out there out of the major four. And yeah, I'm just tired of seeing the same first round matchups. Like for the Leafs, Tampa and Boston, they know they're playing one of them are going to play each other. The two are going to play in the first round, and they're three of probably the top 5 teams in the East for sure. And after round 2, like there's or after round 1, there could be only one left, or whatever it may be. So I don't get it, but
I know they were trying to go for like creating like new rivalries and such, and I understand that, but it definitely seems a little repetitive because Cole, like you just said, the Leafs every year know like that we're getting Boston or we're gonna get Tampa, and there's no question about it because if you're like that 2 or 3 seed, that's who you're gonna get. You're gonna get one of those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, it hasn't even really worked because people are still complaining that there's no good rivalries in the NHL. So
yeah, that's also fair.
Yeah, and I would love to see, like a few years ago when it was Washington and Toronto, right? Like Ovechkin coming to a big hockey market, or even like, can you imagine Pittsburgh versus Toronto? Like those series would be incredible to watch and create new rivalries throughout the regular season that you don't see, right? There's like Boston, Toronto is always going to be a rivalry, regardless if they play in the playoffs or not. But I would love to see, I know this, we're talking like changing schedules and everything, but making almost like the football, 4 divisions of 4 in each conference. You play your division more often. It would less travel for a lot of teams, right? And you take the 4 division winners and then the rest play for the bottom 4. And it would just create crazy rivalries throughout the year, I think. And then you could play the other conference at least once or whatever it works out to be. But I think that would be I think that's a lot more work for the NHL to change, but
I don't hate that. I
don't hate it.
The problem is the NHL is so against anything that's even like remotely like out there. And so like if it's not something they've either like done before or like wouldn't be that different than what they are doing, they're just like, no, we're not doing that. But I mean, it's pretty creative. I haven't heard that before, but I would be interested to at least like see like a simulation of it and see how it would work or something like that.
I'll send you my divisions after.
All right. I would love to see that.
We'll get the intern to publish it. That would be lit.
Yeah, we'll post them up and we can get some comments going.
All righty, moving on. The Philadelphia Flyers head coach John Tortorella issued a letter to season ticket holders on Monday stating that the team is building towards where he wants them to be. So far, Tortorella has led the Flyers to a respectable 21-22-9 record through the first half of the season. Quote in his letter, "Now I'm not going to lie to you, and I want to be clear about this. We're not there yet," Tortorella wrote. This year was the first step in building the future of the Flyers and restoring our reputation as one of the most respected teams in hockey. I will admit the Flyers have been much better this year than I think all of us anticipated. They had a hot start. They've even had a little bit of a hot streak going into the break, relatively, obviously. Mac, what were your thoughts on Torts' letter to the season ticket holders?
I respect it, I guess. I mean, it's always good to keep your fans kind of updated on what's going on. I think that knowing how most Flyers fans are, I doubt this really did much to calm them down or to give them any confidence for the future. But hey, I mean, it's a classy move, kind of cluing them in on what's going on. And like you said, I mean, I think he's done a good enough job, better than most people thought they would be this season. So it'd be interesting to see what kind of, if any, what kind of offseason moves they make to actually like take another step to being what he's hoping they'll be soon.
Cole, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of different for him, right, to do that. But I think if I'm a Flyers fan, I think they're ahead of where I thought they would be at the start of the season.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's what all went on at the, you're bringing Torts in. They have a couple good pieces, man. Konechny is the real deal there. Carter Hart's question mark for me. It's, he's good, bad, whatever, but
streaky.
Yeah, streaky. But I think I like Torts as a coach. To be honest with you, I like that old school mentality. I'm not 100% sold on the no iPad thing, but just it is what it is. I get both sides there, but I think it's cool that what he did at the end of the day.
One of the funniest things relating to the Flyers that I've seen this year is like, obviously any team that has kind of their Twitter group, on Twitter that's always saying how they feel and being brutally honest about their team. The Flyers Twitter group recently, like last like couple of weeks or so, I've seen a lot of like proposing like potential trades or like trades they want the Flyers to make. And one of the funniest things is so many of them are trying to scheme to get Gostisbehere back to the Flyers. And I'm like, you really think that's the answer here? Like you getting back a guy that you had that like was bad after he left and like now he's kind of decent again, but like that's what we're like spending our time on is like, how can we get this guy back? I just got a good laugh out of that. I've seen it more than just a few times too, from multiple accounts.
They need a new GM, honestly. I don't think coaching's really the problem. Chuck Fletcher's kind of an idiot, if I'm being quite frank. I mean, he's made some extremely questionable moves, and that Rasmus Ristolainen contract is just like, what are you doing? And they paid him instead of Johnny G.
Yeah, even Delorier or however you pronounce his name, that was big money for that guy.
Yeah.
And term, I think. I think he even got term on that.
Yeah, a little bit. I can't remember the deal off the top of my head, but that rings a bell. But yeah, I mean,
between the two of them, it was like, I don't know
what's going on. Yeah. I mean, scratching Kevin Hayes is obviously sometimes a little bit of a head scratcher, but in general, I think Torts has done a decent enough job this year. I think most of us expected them to be where maybe, Columbus, Chicago is, but we're going to move on to another team in the Metro. The New York Rangers had what might be the game of the year last night against the Calgary Flames 2 nights ago when you're listening to this. Cole, I know you and I were talking about this a little bit before the show started. The Rangers end up winning it 5-4 in overtime. Lafreniere scores the winner. There was hits, fights, questionable calls, viral clips of New Yorkers losing their mind over, I think it was Mangiapane who kicked it in. What were your thoughts on this game as a whole?
There was so much in that game, and I think that's why it's, could be one of the games of the year so far. I'll start with Trouba because how can you not? The guy is a wrecking ball out there, and I love it. Absolutely love it. I think that's what hockey needs more of. What we were talking about, it was a Monday nighter. Calgary coming from the West to play in New York after a break. They're not rivals, they're outer conference teams playing against each other. I was like, this could be a snoozer of a game. And I found myself like flipping back and forth. And I was just staying on the game because the hits, the fights, the drama, it was awesome. And the one thing I did hate though is that Trouba has to fight after big hits. Like those were clean hits. They were great. like love to see.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I echo that. It's always kind of annoying. I always feel this way when Wilson does this kind of shit for the Caps too. Like he can, or Hathaway, even like these guys that lay big clean hits all the time, and just because one of their best players got rocked, somebody's got to go and fight them, and it's like I'm just doing my job out here. Like, give me a break. But no, you gotta love the big hits, and yeah, I mean, I didn't want the Rangers to win for Metro purposes, but definitely a good game.
Yeah, I mean, and the Flames have been a part of a couple good games here. Mac, I know you'll remember this when we were up in Milwaukee. That game they had against Tampa up in Calgary was a barn burner. That was a really good game too.
I hope the Flames make the playoffs because they're a fun team, and I think they've got a lot of grit, and it'd be fun to see them play in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, sure. They do have a great, I think their team is built for the playoffs, right? You saw that last year. I know there was a lot of change, but I thought the team did a good job replacing those guys. Huberdeau hasn't, panned out to be exactly what he was in Florida, but the overall makeup of the team is gritty, big, tough. You have Zadorov on the back end, and guys like Tanev, and both goalies up in the air. Vlador's playing well. But if Markstrom gets hot, like that could be a dangerous team down the stretch.
Yeah, so they were actually saying this. I was watching the Calgary broadcast leading into the game, and I saw some of the pregame stuff, and they were saying that exact thing, that basically like if Markstrom can find his game here after the All-Star break, like look out, because and they actually showed like side by side of Markstrom's numbers this time last year and Markstrom's numbers now. People forget Jacob Markstrom had 9 shutouts last season. He has 0 so far, which, not to say that, he's having the worst year, but he's definitely nowhere near where he was at last year.
I don't know if it was in the playoffs after that series to Edmonton, where I don't know if he lost his confidence because Edmonton waxed him.
Yeah.
But yeah. Another thing in that game last night, though, was Mangiapane's kicking. Like, I thought it was a blatant kick.
Yeah. I kind of did too. I was expecting it to go the other way, but I mean, who can predict how any of these like goal calls and non-goal calls are going to go these days? There's so much up in the air with that. So
must have been the new NHL script.
Yeah, hey, you see that shit?
Yeah,
that's pretty funny, actually. I also think, is it pronounced? How'd you say it, Cole?
Mangiapane.
I think I said Mangiapane when I is that I swear to
catch that.
Death, taxes, Harry saying people's names wrong.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I've heard it pronounced like that somewhere. Maybe it was like an NHL video game. I can't remember, but yeah, that was a hell of a game last night. We're gonna move on to our favorite place in the United States, the Long Island. We got Bo Horvat, who gets an 8-year, $68 million extension with the Isles before even playing a game with them. He made his debut last night when the Islanders took on the Flyers in Philly. GM Lou Lamoriello said in his press conference after the extension was announced that, quote, too much money, too much term. Paraphrasing a little bit. But yeah, I think he's about the only general manager in the league who can get away with bashing a contract he just gave a player. That's quite hefty, if I would say so. So what are your guys' thoughts on Horvat staying in Long Island?
I know this kind of quote and everything blew up, and everyone's like, what the hell? Like, this guy is like a kook for like signing that and then saying it sucks or whatever. But honestly, like if you saw the actual clip, it kind of makes sense. He's not so much saying that like the specific contract he just signed is like outright bad. It's more just him making a statement about how like in general players are getting too much and too long of term because that's like the norm these days. And so he's kind of just like, to me, it was him just being like, I mean, I had to do that because I already made the trade. And if we want to like get what we want out of it, that's the deal you have to give this guy basically. So we gave it to him, but he's like, if I had my way, I wouldn't give anybody a contract like that, which, I get it, but it's the way the league is right now.
For sure. My question is, has he even been to Long Island yet? Like Bo? He left, went to All-Star game, and then the first game was in Philly.
Yeah,
I'd
love to hear the temporary living situation and what that looks like at the moment.
I know. I can't believe
Like, did him and Anthony Bolivier or whoever went the other way, just like swap keys and we're just like, okay, like my place is here.
we'll figure this out
We'll
later.
figure
But
this
just
out.
I'll
that's what
Venmo
they
you.
should have done. Well, they're playing in the Kraken are in Long Island tonight, so he's getting his first home game while we're recording this.
On Long Island. I don't want you to get hurt, Mac.
Oh, that's right.
They'll
That's
come
right.
after you.
I should know this one too. My whole mom's side of the family is there, so
If you're on the island, not in the island.
yeah, I know.
Oh,
Always.
tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the 8.5. I'm sure. I don't know what he would have got on the open market, but it would have been close.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it's
he's
fair.
having a career year. Does he keep up this 50 goal pace for the next 8 years? No, especially on the island. But I don't know. I guess you got to pay.
Yeah, I mean it's what the league is now. You know, guys are getting contracts like for being projected what they're gonna do rather than what they have done. Granted, Horvat's been doing this for a little bit, and I think he's a solid player. Maybe not quite worth what he got, but you know, I think he fits that Islander system pretty darn well, if you ask me. And this last piece of news, Mac, you're definitely going to be the one I want to hear an opinion for about this. The Washington Capitals extend both Sonny Milano and Dylan Strome. Milano got 3 years, 1.9 AAV, and Stromer got the 5x5. Thoughts on these signings?
So I don't see anything to dislike about either of these deals here. I mean, both these guys have stepped in, done a really good job for the Caps this year. I mean, Milano has got to be like the biggest like fall in your lap piece of luck of the season potentially for any team. I mean, this is a guy that literally everybody was ready to just like throw to the wayside and be like, yeah, no thanks, I'm not interested. And I mean, I guess BMAX saw something where he's like, I'm going to take a chance. I got injuries. We'll see what this guy can do. And it's been a great fit. I saw somebody on Caps Twitter talking about how they think it's pretty cool that this basically means that Milano and Strome are going to be a piece of like the remainder of Ovechkin's career. Like BMAX sees something in them enough where he's like, I want these guys here for the rest of it or for the larger chunk of it. And Strome seems to have a lot of chemistry with Ovi and with the rest of the team and stuff too. So that's a big one. I also love just the term and the amount for both of them. I think 5x5 is great for Strome. There's a chance, you know, by the end of that, maybe it's like, might need to move him or something, but it's so cheap relatively that it's like, it's not a big problem in my opinion. And Milano, yeah, I mean, there's just not much that could hurt you there. It's only 3 years, under 2 mil. So yeah, I see nothing to dislike about either of them.
Cole, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I for 5.55, you're hoping that 4th and 5th year the cap goes up so that it's not a non-issue regardless, right? He's still a young guy. 5 million, even if he's your third line center, winger, whatever, by then, not going to hurt you. He'll be a vet, worth it.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with both of y'all's points here. So we're going to move on to the discussion part of the episode. But before we do, we just want to let you know that this discussion segment is brought to you by Kane Footwear. Let's take a second to talk about Kane Footwear. Are you tired and do you feel like your feet and back are hurting all the time? Then it's time to take some rest and recovery seriously. Kane Footwear is changing the game by providing a unique shoe focused on recovery while being made from sustainable materials. The Cane Revive is made with bounce-back foam created from Brazilian sugarcane, a renewable resource. Sugarcane helps reduce greenhouse gases by capturing CO2 as it grows. These are the most comfortable shoes you will ever wear. Head to the link in our social bios to find the Kane Footwear link that will help support us. We definitely appreciate it. I never take these things off. I show them on screen every time people ask if they're Crocs, Yeezys. They're neither. They're Kane Footwear. All righty, let's get into the discussion part of the episode. So for this, you know, it's the second half of the season. Everybody talks about how, you know, the real season starts after the All-Star game. I want to hear if either of you have some, let's say, bold predictions rather than hot take of what's going to happen in the second half of the year. Mac, I'll let you lead off here.
All right. So, you know, Harry said it. These are bold predictions. So with anytime you're making a bold prediction, you're taking a chance that you might put your foot in your mouth later down the road. So I'm fully, understanding that. Could be wrong here, but my bold prediction here is the Vegas Golden Knights are going to miss the playoffs. And here's why. Number one, they have an issue in goaltending that did not seem to be an issue early on in the season that now is looking to be more of an issue, in my opinion. I think early on, it looked like Logan Thompson was like Vezina caliber candidate. He was real good. Since then, he's been pretty streaky, and only having a guy like Aiden Hill to rely on if LT can't get the job done just doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in me. I know he's stepped in and won some big games for them, but I don't know. Something about that combo just feels really shaky to me right now. The other huge problem here, obviously, would be injuries. Mark Stone is out, and I don't know what the timetable for that one is, but it doesn't seem good. I think it's like a back injury, if I'm not mistaken, which usually is not something that's going to be relatively quick. Also, like, it's one of those things where even if he does come back, it's probably something he's going to need like surgery for in the offseason. So there's no way he's going to be like 100%. To me, that's your best player. That's your captain. That's the guy that like you literally need on that team, in the locker room, on the ice, inspiring confidence, all that. Third reason, and we talked about this, I think last episode or maybe the one before that, Jack Eichel is just not doing what he needs to do, not playing up to
not him.
Yeah, he doesn't look himself, and that's another thing that early on in the season it was like, oh, is this going to be a perfect fit? He was kind of hot for a little bit, and he had that hat trick against Buffalo. Everyone was going crazy, being like, "Holy crap, this is sick!" And now, as Harry said, he kind of stinks. So, yeah, basically all those reasons combined. Not to mention, if you look at the standings, there's a lot of hard teams that are just within a couple of points of them. So I don't know. We talked about Calgary earlier. I could definitely see Markstrom getting it together and them kind of passing them by. Maybe it's tough because Vegas missed barely last season, right? And it's tough to predict that they're going to do it again, but I really think they're either getting like that last wild card spot or they're not getting in. I just think there's too many good teams there, and there's too many issues in Vegas at the moment. So that's my bold prediction.
Well, just to add on to a couple of the points you made, the timetable, who is it? Sinbin Vegas, a great follow on Twitter for anything VGK related. They released a tweet today that said Mark Stone might play again this season, but if he does, it would be in the middle of the postseason. So the Vegas Golden Knights would have to make the playoffs. Yeah, it's rough.
I didn't know it was that bad. That's even worse.
It's brutal. Yeah. And then right before we started recording this, I was watching NHL Network that I have to pay like $200 extra a month for cable bill. I'm not complaining though. Kevin Weeks said that Jack Eichel 1 assist in his last 9 games, 0 goals. That's
a tough look.
That's your best player, and he's not doing it, So
you know who's been their best player all season? Paul Cotter. I don't know if anyone has watched enough Vegas Golden Knights games, but that guy has been a workhorse night in and night out. And I had no idea who he was before this season, but he's been amazing.
You should be his agent. I like that.
I should be.
Still have no idea who this guy is.
Every time I turn on one of their games, he either scores a big goal or lays a big hit, or the announcer's saying his name. Like so much, I was like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" I had to like look it up. But he's been like easily the guy who's like he's like the Nick Dowd of that team. Like what you're getting every night. Like just freaking putting in work.
Is he on your fantasy team?
No, he's not. I don't think he's putting up points enough to be on fantasy, probably. But yeah, he's the only good thing I can say about them right now.
Cole, what's your bold prediction for the second half of the year?
All right, man. You put me on the hot seat on this one, so I'm definitely going to hear about it later on in the season. But I'm going to say Buffalo Sabres go on a hot streak here, and they're going to acquire your boy Patty Kane at the deadline, his hometown, and they're going to make the playoffs for the first time since 2011.
Wow. I love that.
I would love to see it, honestly, as long as it doesn't mean the Caps are missing.
Or the
Pitt,
Pens or Caps is going to have to
Pitt
miss.
will have to go, I guess.
Oh God! All right, well,
works for me.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of people saying Pitt ain't going to make it, but no, I don't blame them, by the way. But Cole, I like that you threw the trade in there. That's a nice little. Let's throw some spice in it.
Hometown boys gotta go back. I think his parents still in that area. Travel to every Chicago home game.
Yeah. Yep. That's a good one. All right. So full disclosure, Max stole. Well, I shouldn't say he stole. He thought of mine because we didn't talk about this prior. So that was going to be mine. Was talking about.
You were going to say
VGK.
that they weren't going to make the playoffs, or what?
Yeah, I don't think they will. I really don't, because Edmonton and Calgary are coming right behind them, and then Colorado's going to make the playoffs. So I feel like
to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if Seattle's like goes down to either the bottom, because they're only a couple points ahead of Vegas as well.
Yeah,
I feel like everything went right for that team. I'm not saying that they don't deserve to be there. They've played amazing. Their goalies have been, streaky but good enough. But their shooting percentage is like number one in the NHL. Like, what happens if that comes back even a bit?
Yeah.
Like, that division is so tight, and you have teams like Colorado, like right there for the wild card as well. Like, if Edmonton and Calgary get hot, I don't know.
I kind of want to bet the Kings to win that division. I feel like they're just going to fall in. I feel like they're just going to like end up in first place at the end and be like, oh shit, we won. Like everyone, because they're like in second consistently, and like they're right there hanging around. But you're kind of right. Like I feel like Seattle could fall off, and if the other teams just don't catch up quick enough, they might just end up there at the end and be like,
with
oh,
Copley
cool.
in net.
Yeah, right. He's been pretty solid for them too.
He's unreal.
Yeah. Capitals legend Phoenix Copley.
Well, unfortunately, I agree that my Pittsburgh Penguins are not looking great, and I could definitely understand why someone would say they don't make it. I also agree that that VGK will probably not make the playoffs at this rate. So I'm going to go way off the board. This is going to be a hot one, so buckle up. I'm looking at this team, and I was so high on them in our preseason predictions. I think I actually predicted they're going to go to the Stanley Cup back in September. I am now going to completely reverse that. And I'm going to go as
I know exactly what we're going to say.
I'm going to go as far to say that Connor Bedard will become a St. Louis Blue in this year's draft. I think they're dead. I think they're going to finish bottom 5, and assuming the lottery's not rigged and we're not following any script, they got a decent chance.
That's not what I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say something bad about the Rangers, because we all predicted them to be in the Cup at the beginning of the year. But
I can't say anything bad about them.
You really can't. I mean, they're definitely going to make the playoffs.
So I'm looking at St. Louis right now. They've lost 6 straight games. Binnington has top 3 GAA in the league for goalies with a minimum of 10 starts. And they're currently 25th in the NHL in standings. So they're really not that far from 32nd.
No, there is there's like that little gap between them, Montreal and Vancouver right now, right? 49, 44 each there.
Oh, you're really watching. Okay.
I'm a Habs fan, man. I watch nightly. I literally cheer for everyone but Montreal this year, only because of the Bedard sweepstakes. Like last year, I was like, you know what? Sucked. This year, I'm like, oh, okay. Like when Vancouver tied it up against the Devils last night, like I was fist bumping. I'm like, that is a big point. That's a big point.
This is such a fun year for like to have that going on, because we talked about on a different episode. Like we've got some Flyers fans that are friends of ours, and like they'll be tweeting like, why are the Flyers winning games? Like, can they please stop winning games?
Like Montreal started the season like at 500 for like the first like 15 games. And I'm like, what are we doing? And this was before like the Bedard sweepstakes in the World Juniors. But also like then they lost a bunch, and then they went on a tear where they beat like Toronto, Winnipeg, and the Rangers all in the same week. And I'm like, those are 6 points we'll never get back.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah. I mean, it's a bold take. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Berube behind the bench, that guy is definitely not someone who wants to tank.
So what? You got to fall to the bottom 5 to get in that lottery, right? So I mean, they're only
You just don't have to make the playoffs.
You can technically win it if you just don't make the playoffs, but your best odds are if you're bottom 5, I think.
That's right.
Yeah. So the way it works is you can only move up 2 spots at the highest, right? So like if say Columbus finishes dead last, if someone above third place gets first overall pick, and then someone else gets second, because only the bottom 2 picks are lottery picks, is from what I understand. So if you finish dead last, the worst pick you can get is third.
Okay.
Okay,
that makes sense.
You can only get bumped 2 spots. And they're saying like the top 5 draft picks this year are like pretty good players, like going to be top 6 forwards, or, could be game-changing type players.
Yeah.
With Fantilli, Bedard, Carlson, Michkov, or whoever.
Yeah.
So if you're in that bottom 3 to 5, it looks like if everything goes your way, you're going to end up with a player.
Okay.
So that's my bold take. Hopefully they're sellers. They get rid of Tarasenko. O'Reilly goes somewhere. I've been seeing some rumors. Don't know if it'll happen, but you know what? I'm throwing it out there. And I picked them to go to the Cup.
I like it.
In September, I picked them versus the Rangers as my Cup prediction, and here I am saying they're going to tank for Bedard. So I don't know what I'm doing apparently, but
bold on both sides.
I think I had Rangers Oilers in the Cup. That could still maybe happen.
That could still happen.
That was my pick.
Yeah. Our entire show picked the Rangers to go to the Cup. It was kind of concerning. So,
and we all hate them with a burning passion.
We also didn't know Boston was going to be lights out and Allmark was only going to lose 5 games this season.
I mean, that is insane. But last episode we were talking about, we're like, come on, what team does this well and then doesn't lose in like the first round?
It's true.
Yeah, for sure.
President's Trophy out in the first round. I can already see it.
We're going to move on to the gambling segment of the episode. This segues perfectly with Cole on the program. But before we do, I think Mac has a word from our sponsor, SharpRank.
Indeed. Yeah. As always, just want to remind you guys that this season, all of our picks are powered by SharpRank. SharpRank created the first ever cross-sport rating system, ranking bettors from any sport on one leaderboard that anyone can dominate, even you. SharpRank is backed by some of the biggest names in the sports gambling world, such as BetMGM, Betway, and Sports Illustrated. Go ahead and download the free app on iPhone, Android, any of that. Go get SharpRank. Follow us. Follow our picks. Tweet us your picks. It's a fun app. Fun way to keep track of your bets. So get with it.
For sure. All right. Obviously, we're coming off of the All-Star break. Not a whole lot of I don't know. Cole, you could tell me if you disagree. It's a little bit of a dangerous game to be betting right after the break because you don't really know what you're going to get.
100%.
Yeah.
Usually you kind of get I'm a big fan of watching a lot of games, right? It's Sportsnet now, NHL, Game Center, whatever you want to call it. So I'm watching all the games, right? And when you go 5 or 6 days without seeing teams or seeing, trends, it's really tough. You don't know who hit it hard over the break or is coming in cold. But yeah, I would say maybe unit down a bit, for the first week or so. And then once you see who has their legs back or, then you can hammer down. But it's always weird coming out of the All-Star break. Even the last few days, I tend not to touch on it with 1 or 2 games a night.
Yeah.
So,
I'll put this out there. St. Louis just talked about them. Their last 5 games in a row, their opponent has hit the team total over in all 5. They've been letting in a ton of goals lately. Wow. I also want to note,
that's a wild stat.
Not to toot my own horn, just checked my phone. I tweeted out today, Kucherov over 1.5 assists at plus 175. Hit it in the second period. We love that.
That's unreal.
Tampa
that's
coming
great
out.
Cash.
Yeah. Well, the Islanders and the Lightning both have back-to-backs right after the break. I'm like, I like that. I mean, you get to see something first. They've got their legs under them. So I like
it way better than the Caps sitting dormant for 5 days just to play 2 day games in a row that they're definitely going to get smoked in both of.
Yeah.
I feel like if I'm in the NHL, I do not want all that time off after the break. You're just going to come back and get smacked by all the teams that already had a couple games.
Yeah. And that's the same for the Habs, but I'm hoping that they do get waxed. Both games.
Right.
Cole, who are some teams that, I mean, obviously you're the over king, right? So I'm going to defer to you on this. Who are some teams that you're maybe going to keep an eye on this week? Some teams that have treated you well. I know we talked about that a little bit last time, but figured I'd check up on it again.
Yeah, for sure. So, the go-to over teams are Edmonton's and always a go-to. Buffalo loves the over. St. Louis earlier in the season and still love the over. Vancouver was an easy one last night against New Jersey. I didn't know if Vancouver was going to put up 4 like they did, but I figured they were good for a couple. So
that was a good one. Yep.
Yeah, coming out of the break, always look to those type of teams, right? Tonight, Tampa coming off a set, like they lost 7-1. Them and San Jose are both over teams. San Jose gives up a lot of shots. Tampa Bay shoots the puck a lot. So I was all over that one today.
Tampa had 17 shots in the first period, so there you go.
Yeah, and I think if the first period there were 4-goal first, right? So those are what over dreams are made of. I'm on Edmonton tonight. I don't know if it's looking too hot for me early on in the first, but
I'm on that one too. We need a goal. We need a goal soon.
Yeah, but you never know with that team, right? It'll come down to if Detroit wants to put a couple away tonight. But I stick when I'm looking at teams. I like teams that give up a lot of shots, go on give up a lot of power plays.
Yep.
Like Vancouver right now is I think they actually have the worst penalty kill in NHL history. It's not just the worst this year. I think think it is statistically one of the worst in since they've started tracking that.
Yeah.
And they're usually good for 3 or 4 penalties a game.
Yeah.
So I think it's honestly low 60s.
That's insane.
If they give up 3 or 4, you're almost guaranteed 2.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Just looking for
now
guaranteed shots at the end of the day.
So your shots on goal, you've really hammered home on player props this season as opposed to last year when we started following you. And I noticed, and you said this last time, and I like this a lot. You've got a rotation of maybe 7 or 8 guys that you really like to bet on for shot on goal props. What's the madness behind that?
For sure. So when you're looking at guys that shoot a lot, and this year, just put him at the top of my list is Jack Hughes. This guy came out not out of nowhere. We knew he was going to be a stud, but I didn't think he was going to be shooting 5 to 6 times a night. He's the new Pasternak.
Yeah.
But so guys like that, right? You have the Matthews who've fallen off the map, which is he is the number one since his injury. I think Nick Bonino took it, but before he went out injured or whatever it was before the break, he is the number 1 forward for blocking shots this year. Mind blowing.
Wow.
And
wild.
so because I watched these guys, he was 5 or 6 shots a night last year, and this year he's he sometimes doesn't even hit the 3.5. So I keep my list, right? It's the Pasternaks, the McKinnons, the Tage Thompsons. He's fall off a bit, a Kaprizov type of guy. Those guys. And I just watch them because they hit at 70, 80% if you're Jack Hughes in the month of December or January. It was ridiculous.
Insane.
So I'll watch them. And if I see a night where they don't have any or 1, I'm hammering them the next game.
Yeah.
It's just in their nature to want to score, right?
Yeah.
And they know when they had a bad game. No one needs to go in that dressing room and tell Pasternak, hey, buddy, you had an off night. If he's not shooting the puck 6 or 7 times, he knows he had an off night. So, and I find those guys, I'm on McKinnon tonight. Pittsburgh gives up a lot of shots.
Give up a ton.
And McKinnon's playing against his buddy Crosby, whatever that storyline is, but they put him at 4.5, and half the time those 4.5s, they give out pretty good value, close to even, plus 105. If I'm getting Jack Hughes to shoot the puck at plus money, I'm taking it this year.
For sure.
At the end of the day, I could lose a couple and I'll still be fine on it. It's when like I was hot on Caulfield at the start of the year because they were only set him at 2.5. It was like a license.
Oh, I know you were hammering that. Yeah.
But then it got to like minus 150, minus 160, and I'm like, no, okay, but like get off this guy. But then they started putting him at 3.5 at plus money, and I'm like, okay, I'll dabble with that. But yeah, that's what I do. I don't like. It's really tough to go across the league. There's so many props,
That's
so
insane.
many guys. Like Verhaeghe in Florida, unreal for shots. I think he hits like 8 out of 10. It's ridiculous. The Kachuk brothers also, but I really like focusing on like 5 or 6. That way I could track their game logs and see if Tage Thompson, I think, won 2 or 3 games in a row with like 1 shot. And I'm like, oh my God, he's hitting tonight. And it was like first period cash. I'm like, oh, perfect.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always happen that way. You might get a guy that's just not feeling well either. It could be under the, you don't have all the insight on it. So
yeah, for sure. I think that's great insight for definitely more of some of the more casual fans who are listening and betting based on what we give them on the pod. Yeah. So we'll wrap up the episode here real quick with a little State of the Union. Mac, I don't know if you have much to say. I mean, the Caps are off until what, like Saturday or some shit?
Yeah, we play a day game against Boston, I think in Boston on Saturday, which that's like four typically bad Caps things happening at once. Day games we suck in, Boston owns us. In Boston we suck, and most of all, when we've had more than like 2 days off in a row, we always lose. So that one I would advise you put your 401k on the Bruins like puck line, or maybe even like to win like Bruins like minus like 4.5. Sure, just hit it. Whatever. It's gonna hit.
I'll put some coin down on that for
sure. But yeah, I mean, not much else to talk about, right? I think
talked about the extensions.
Yeah, talked about the extensions. I mentioned I think last time that one of my buddies was asking me, he's kind of a casual hockey fan. He's a Red Wings fan sort of, but he was asking me like, how are the Caps doing this year? And, I was just kind of telling him like, we're about to find out basically, because this is, as we all know, when you come back from the All-Star game, especially given the position in the standings the Caps are at right now, where they're just on the cusp of being in, but, especially having the whole week off, they're probably going to be out of a playoff spot by like Sunday or something like that. So it's time to find out what this team is made of. So we'll see. Next couple of weeks should be very telling for all teams, but for especially the Caps being where they're at in the standings. So I'll be watching closely, and I'll probably have more for State of the Union next week or week after if we're off next week, right? So
we are off next week. Gonna hit the Penguins real quick. I'll make it short and sweet. Actually, Ron Hextall gave his State of the Union to the team over the weekend at practice, and he said everything that the fan base already knows. The bottom 6 stinks, and he also said that the first round pick is off the table for the trade deadline, which I don't know how to feel about that. I mean, I don't know. I could go in on that, but I won't. This team needs really 2 things. They need a second goalie because Casey DeSmith is just can't trust him after this season. I've seen Demko's name. I've seen Reimer's name. I've seen Craig Anderson's name.
Jonathan Quick.
I've seen Peterson's name. I'd be down with any of those guys over Casey DeSmith, if I'm being honest. And then a middle 6 forward would be nice. I've seen Besser's name. I've seen Nieto. I've seen Domi. I would take any of those names. I'd throw Kapanen right in there if I had it my way. So that's what the team, I think, is going to have to address in the coming weeks. Obviously, they got Colorado as we're recording this. I think it's 0-0 right now. And then after that, they go out to California for their road trip. They've got that whole LA, Anaheim, and San Jose trip coming up. So that's going to be hopefully some easy games against the Ducks and the Sharks, but you never really know. It's concerning. Like Cole said, the Sabres are hot, and they're probably going to be buyers. The Panthers, I mean, they can turn it on at any moment, and the Islanders are starting to warm up too. So Pens better get it together here quickly. That's all I really got to say. Cole, if you have anything to say about the Habs, I won't leave you out. I know you might have something.
Let's be real. There's not too much to say. I'm hoping that Harvey Pinard is our number 1 point getter in the second half. That's how bad I want this to be. So
there you go.
They also play Saturday, Sunday, back-to-back first time. They go Islanders, and then they get McDavid. So I'm hoping that's number 2. But yeah, it's one of those seasons. It's still fun to watch it. They're a young team. At the end of the day, they're going to be sellers. So if you need some middle forwards, you just give our GM a call, and I'm sure he could help you out with some depth forwards.
I heard Josh Anderson's name a lot, but apparently that's a pretty steep price, which I don't blame you. The guy's a gamer.
Yeah, and I think it's mostly the contract, right? Like $5 million for
it's a steal.
He could play up and down your lineup. I think he's only like 27.
Yeah, that's like
you could take like a Hoffman. I think have a Hoffman.
Yeah,
just take him off my hands. Maybe Danidov needs new surroundings.
Yeah. I'll have Ron call your guy.
Yeah,
but yeah, that just about wraps up the episode here. Mac, any final notes?
I'm all good.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Cole, yeah, seriously, thank you for filling in. We appreciate it. This is actually a lot of fun. We definitely should do this again in the future.
For sure.
Go follow Cole on Twitter, The Daily Over. I know we've shouted him out a bunch. We're always retweeting his stuff. Go follow him on Twitter for his daily picks. You've been money this season, so props.
I do have actually one other thing I thought of, since we won't be on next week. If any of you listeners out there are going to be in Raleigh for the Capitals Canes outdoor game, hit me up. I'll be there all weekend, and come say hi. So be there with my family.
When's that game?
Not this coming Saturday, but next Saturday.
That would be February 17th.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. You're at the game. That's awesome.
Yes, sir.
Definitely put that on the Instagram story and such. All right, everybody. We appreciate the love and support as always. Mac, without further ado.
Class dismissed.